doesn't want me to mention his name. I don't know why Kevin Mehta, M-E-T-A, in Singapore is so nervous, but you didn't hear me mention Kevin Mehta, did you?
No.
No, I wouldn't blow his cover. Let's go find David. And for those of you out there who are not Kevin Mehta or Pastor Clyde, there's a reason why we're late. I just can't remember what it is. I'm not in Skype yet. That's one of the problems. This is David, nervous as a cat. No, it's not. Phil McConnell. Yes, but I'm on a live radio show, so who am I talking to? Okay, are you down in Dallas area? Okay, well, I need to talk to you when I'm not live on the radio, okay? I got your number captured, and I think I got your last name. Say it one more time, because I think it's going to sink in. Oh, okay. Yes, I thought I heard something else, but I know who you are. What time would be a good time for me to call you after I get off this live radio show that I'm on right now? Okay, well, I'll call you sometime after 2:30 and before 9 p.m. Thank you very much. You won't believe what that is. I'll tell you in a minute. These guys are dead. Let's see, I thought it was David. It's not David. David's here. I'll explain to everybody, including Clyde and David, that call, which is significant, if I remember. Remind me, I got a call. Let's see, I got to call David right now. This is getting way too easy.
Phil?
Yeah, that's not the proper way. What's that?
Phil?
Yes?
I'm trying to get...
Anybody who'd like to replace David Hawkins as my trained monkey, send me an email at fieldmcc@yahoo.com. And you have to have technological skills that exceed his.
Hello?
Are you on the phone?
Yeah, I just had an emergency call. Just give me 5 minutes.
Oh, okay. Well, take your time, but you're broadcasting live right now, so you might want to turn something off or whatever. Bye. Oh, we have a 5-minute delay because you know who is doing something that's not eating, like masticating. And if Metsamax, in fact, I'm going to go to the chat room since it's all about me for 5 minutes. Do-de-do. At least I'm going to try to go to the chat room. Hope I didn't just turn something off. Nope, we're still on. Okay, any questions from the chat room? Otherwise, I'll get into, I'm supposed to say hello to everyone, and Bucky Badger says hi to Pastor Clyde. Bucky was the big guy with the taller brother?
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the boys got blessed with height, and one of them got blessed with tonnage. And so, Bucky, you're talking about coming up early. Just to be real clear, so I don't have to repeat myself privately and look like I'm cutting deals, the first one to arrive for the Plum City Plunge is Jack Mack, who is the official curator. Is that right, or is it curator? Hey, David, stop making noise. Is it curator or curator?
Well, courier.
No, I'm talking about for a museum. Curator?
Curator.
Okay, well, I don't know what it is, but that's your job, Jack Mack. And I was out there, I'm fumbling with my calendar, as David's fumbling with everything. Maybe if I had a 2014 calendar, that would help. Never mind. The Plum Plunge starts officially, and of course there is no official. It's a public event. Everyone can do what they want. The trick is, if you don't have lodging lined up, it may be difficulty, or you may expose yourself to a ticket. But back to the lack of script. In fact, I think we write better scripts than the script kiddie writers at Quantico, Serco, NTSB, FAA, ALPA, GAPAN, and the Worshipful Company of Inholders, because we just tell the truth, and that's so much easier and less risky than being a complete hosehead. Speaking of hosehead, notice I didn't say anything about Eric Holder, but yesterday his royal sissiness blew up in talking to Representative Gohmert. When Gohmert asked him why he was such a complete failure, he said, "I wouldn't go there, buddy." Oh, that's great street talk from, there's a whole lot of mulattoes around that couldn't get into the stylistics or the blue notes or the shy lights. Just because you got an afro and nothing under it doesn't mean the world needs to kiss your, well, that would be sort of a milk chocolate derriere. That's French for rectum. Actually, it's not, because the derriere would be both buns left and right, and they come in different shades.
And shapes.
And shapes. So anyway, David will be with us, but I wanted to address Bucky's question. Thursday is the 17th, so that means Tuesday's the 15th, so Sunday's the 13th, so Jack Mack's coming on the 12th of July, which is a Saturday. He's arrival number 1, and he's the curator of the Plum City Stud Studebaker collection, which is an Auguste, if unpaid, position. And actually it's in July, not Auguste. Speaking of Goose, I think the chapter 25 title, yeah, it does. The chapter 25 title accuses all those nations of being on a wild goose chase. And which reminds me, later today I will show you that Able Danger has got a black box that allowed us to solve MH370, just like Captain Sherlock solved 9/11. But back to the party, and we are going to have good cause for victory. If Holder is still in office during the plunge, he won't make it more than a couple days after. Take that any way you want it, but I'd suggest up your rear, Holder. Speaking of the plunge, Thursday is the Vino in the Valley dinner, where we have a reservation for 30 people right now, including our elder agent, Pastor Clyde. He's a pastor by day, and his assignments by night are classified until we're done with our investigation. Thursday night, we go to Vino in the Valley for dinner. We have reservations for 30. There are 230 seats at Vino in the Valley, and I'll reserve and pay for every one of them. If we get Clinton, that's Her Royal Highness Clinton, not Slick Willie, Barry Swatero, or Eric Holder out of office, any one of those three will trigger my making a reservation for 230 people where I'll pay for the dinner. And I'm not forgetting that some guy whose hat is around here. Let me just sweep around here. You can try to figure out who I'm talking about. There's a lot of hats in this room. And we got some pink undies. We got an airline uniform. So back to what the schedule is. We're going to have 30 to 230 people at Vino in the Valley. In all seriousness, remind me about that call, because I already forgot. In all seriousness, one of our dangerettes is talking to a very intelligent person in Congress, and it could very easily happen that that congressperson and that congressperson's spouse could be there like flies on the wall at our meeting on July 17th. So let's worry about that later. As the time gets closer and my third trip to Singapore comes and goes, where I work with a guy named Kevin Mehta, that's Kevinmeta. He was a Singapore Airlines, excuse me, not airlines then. He was in the Singapore Air Force, and they were transitioning in 1975 to the Douglas A-4 Skyhawks, and they came over to NAS Chase Field, can't make this up, Chase Field in Beeville, Texas, where there's a McConnell unit. Anyone that wants to see a McConnell unit, I can meet you at the McConnell unit at Beeville, Texas sometime. That's a prison. And it seems like Holder and Sotero and Hillary might get a look at a prison for treason. And there's a standoff going on right now in Nevada. I would caution the federal people to back off. you do what you want, but that's my advice to the feds. Get out of Nevada quick. Having said that, Friday we're going to have the old car thing, rain or shine. And right now, as of today, it appears we have 5 Studebakers, an Imperial convertible, a Lincoln, a Camaro, a presidential limo. That's 9 cars. And we might slip in the purple limo. And last year I was told not to bring the purple limo to the car show. So I'm very, I've got a very good memory. I've got very good manners. I never do anything I'm told not to do. So if I'm told to keep the purple limo, probably because it says love your neighbor as you love yourself. I don't know why they didn't want it, but they're going to get it whether they want it or not, because the purple limo will be lurking down at the nursing home or somewhere else, and it'll just happen to be the first car that follows the parade, because traffic gets backed up every year. So anyway, we'll pass out car assignments when we find out who's getting here. So far, the only 2 that are assigned are Jack Mack's driving Tillman's Ghost, and if Jack Mack or Atomic Betty are here, maybe somebody could put up the Tillman's Ghost YouTube. It's found by going to YouTube and putting in Pat Tillman's Ghost. And the other assignment that's made is the yellow convertible, in respect to her being the first dangerette to commit to this year and the one that's staying the longest. Atomic Betty is arriving on Monday, and Atomic Betty will be driving the yellow convertible. And I went out and looked at your yellow convertible today. In fact, about 1 hour and 12 minutes ago, I had my hand on the convertible top. Some people don't think that all this detail is necessary. Oh yeah, it is. You can imagine what the people in the NSA, FBI, and the search and rescue people from 12 nations, all 12 of which I'm communicating, with the exception of the United Kingdom, the United States, and Australia. And there's a good reason why I will not communicate with any of those 3. And it's a truthful reason. So Friday night we have the car thing. Saturday night we have a tour. Saturday during the day we'll have a tour of historic Plum City. And there'll be some old guys. I don't know if Clyde will be among them, but he's got seniority over the other tour. That we're going to take the urban assault vehicle that was recently bought by Able Danger, and it looks like it's pulled by a horse, by 2 Bengert brothers, or by a John Deere lawnmower. But actually, it's a 2014 model Mercedes urban assault vehicle, and all we have to do to it before we pull it Saturday is, under the guidance of some of the Dangerettes, we're going to paint it in pastel colors to match our tie-dyed shirts, which 2 of the Dangerettes have not volunteered, but they might as well put their hands in the air, because Atomic Betty and Freeport Girl will probably be the ones that will be here and the most capable of guiding the production of about 30 matching tie-dyed t-shirts. And now that automatically, because all of you people know how Agent Chips thinks, you're thinking that I'm going to suggest that people wear a tie-dye t-shirt, which of course Jack Mack would throw water on, meaning the t-shirt, not my idea. No, that's not my idea at all. If I had in fact, I do have a t-shirt right here. I'll show you how we're going to wear these tie-dye t-shirts. And I'll be right with you, David. Anyway, this is probably more valuable than what David and I normally talk about, because we've published 55,000 pages. And if that's not enough to put these cretins in prison, any more talking about truthful facts isn't going to help. But pretend this is a tie-dye t-shirt. Notice I just put it over every other layer of clothing I'm wearing. So we're not suggesting that we're going to have a wet t-shirt contest, but we are suggesting, just so we blend into the community and nobody knows who we are, we'll all be wearing tie-dyed t-shirts so we can lay low. Which reminds me, those of you who have one of these things can certainly wear that untie-dyed, or if you want to paint your pistol. There was a movie called Paint Your Wagon. We are going to paint our wagon. I think I just said that, but Freeport Girl, Atomic Betty, and Jack Mack will be the brain trust. And that doesn't mean Freeport Girl has to be here, because she might be busy and not be able to arrive. But Atomic Betty and Jack Mack will be arriving 5 days, 4 days, 6 days early. So that's enough about the Plum City Plunge through Saturday. There's a sock hop Saturday night, and somebody with a tenor sax will be blowing in the band. And the Dangerette Choral Group may sing backup on Poor Side of Town and Secret Agent Man. And on Sunday, we'll do something reverent, whatever that means. But we have a pastor right here, so. And somebody help me remember. I got to talk about that phone call still.
Yeah.
I got to remember this year, Pastor Clyde was at our table last year when we had 16 people at the Plum City Plunge. And I meant to have him either give an opening or closing prayer, in which case you would have done that, wouldn't you? Yeah, I thought so. And to keep from pressuring him too much, this year we'll offer him the opening prayer or the closing prayer, and then somebody who's a dangerette or an agent, able body, can volunteer to do the other end, sort of like bookends. So the phone call I just got, David, then I'll turn it over to you. My phone rang, and I'm going to give you 6 to 9 numbers. I think there's 9 numbers. 3, no, there's 10. 10.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Just to show that everything's honest in real time, and even though it looks like ideal in fiction, you wouldn't want to bet your life on it. Recent calls received. Area code 218-3716. And you can fill in the blanks, and I couldn't see the blanks because that's where it stopped. But as soon as this thing goes dead, I will, in front of Pastor Clyde, if he's still here, I'll call that person back. The person identified himself by initials and surname, and it sounded a lot like Lynn Dalney. And I know Lynn is not initials, but in this case, I thought I was talking to a guy who really exists named Lynn Dalney. And I said, could you say your name again? And he said, yes, I'm dispatcher, and then his name, which I'm not going to expose. He has been sent to me by a dispatcher at American Airlines who knows the tail numbers of the 911 jets of both United and American. He also knows why those tail numbers were selected. He also knows that the persons plural selecting those tail numbers both got super promotions, first to cushy government jobs involving the flying of airplanes, and then to one of the private contractor type. You don't have to show up for work, and we'll give you $300,000 a year since you helped us with 9/11 type jobs in the Beltway of DC. And these people think they're getting away with it. I don't know if anybody read chapter 24, but there were 3 pieces of scripture that should cause reasonable people like Horse's Ass Holder, or whatever his name is, they should make it very evident to them that they've been lied to by their sponsors who say that we're going to keep you alive and make you immensely wealthy. They can't make that promise, but these 3 scriptures can. Jeremiah 33:3, call to me and I will tell you strange and unsearchable things that you do not know. Daniel 2:21-22, where it says roughly, he knows everything that goes on. He knows what's done in darkness, and he will assign somebody to illuminate it, or he'll pull the switch himself. And I'm not very good at this one, so I should look it up, but David's probably chomping at the bit to get going. If somebody would put up Luke 8:17, and I'll immediately, when I turn it over to David, I'll go look it up too to make sure I didn't just lie to you. But I think Luke 8:17, you don't know that one. No, I don't either, otherwise I'd spill the beans. It basically says, you're not fooling anybody. I see everything you do. So, David, while we prepare for my 3rd trip to Singapore, do you have anything you want to talk about? And by the way, chapter 25 is being written right now. I was so tired yesterday, I did something very unmale-like. I took a night off and I went to bed early. Okay, now I'm back to my normal self, the ever-ready bunny, and we'll have their ass with chapter 25, and it should go up tonight. David, over to you. David, are you there? Let's see if David's there. It really doesn't matter if he is or he isn't. I think he's there and he's muted himself. Doo-dee-doo. Bear with me while I try to find David. Fortunately, we have a lot to talk about today where if he's not here, it's okay. But I'm giving him one ringy-dingy on the cell phone. Maybe my monologue put him to sleep. Doo-dee-doo. I know what we can do. Would somebody in the chat room tell David? Oh, there's a, thank you, Maranatha, Luke 8:17. For nothing is secret that will not be revealed, nor anything hidden that will not be known and come to light. I'm leaving a message for you know who. Hey, David, this is, what am I? He always says, hello, Your Eminence. Oh, yes, this is my Eminence. And I'm talking to you on a cell phone live on Skype also. And who's standing by for Skype? Ginger Cookie. Okay, I think maybe you fell off Skype. I'll see. Bye. Ginger Cookie, did he fall off Skype? Somebody in the chat room bring me up to date. Thank God for that, Field. I don't know what you're thanking God for. Oh, this is funny. This is real funny. Holder, erect holder, E-R-E-C-T. And that comes from a woman, have you got holder on your mind? You know, not only can I not hit those notes, neither can Gary Puckett. But he doesn't hit the high notes anymore, but he hits the important notes. He's now a Christian singer. He's living in the Sarasota, Florida area. He came from Hibbing, Minnesota, and his group was the, don't tell me, Gary Puckett and Union Gap. The Union Gap were so unprofessional that the recording studio said, we don't want your band, we only want you. But Gary Puckett was so loyal, he said, you can't have me unless you take my band. And the way they whitewashed that is they had his band playing along, but they overwhelmed them with an orchestra. So you hear the really good music, just like you do here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at Able Danger, because we no longer are trying to pursue anybody or pester anybody, because we've already done a good enough job that the nations over in the Pacific Rim know they're in a wild goose chase, and they got that message loud and clear from Able Danger. So you sleeping, Field. Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, I did. I went to sleep early last night. You know what happened? What happens if you go to sleep early? Can you guess? It's real easy. You wake up early.
Oh.
So I woke up quite early this morning, but I was totally well rested, and I only have one thing to worry about, and it's not getting shot in the back, because I'm a trick shot artist, and I whip this out and I'd go over my shoulder like that, just like I did in the movie Trinity. Trinity Is Still My Name, and the third movie, which I forgot. Some people think that was a guy named Terrence Hill playing that part. Let me just see if there's a woman named Susan. Looks like I'm losing my mind. I'm wasting my time. Nope, Susan's not here. The Susan I was looking for has a sister named Marianne Hill, and I misspoke that on purpose. And the guy that was the fast gun artist in Trinity was Terrence Hill. Yeah, there you go, Ginger. That's me. Field, David is standing by. Well, what's he standing by for? Maybe he fell off Skype. But whoever said that, thank you. It looks like he fell off Skype. So if anybody'd like to take his job, it's available immediately.
Hello, Your Eminence.
Let's try that again.
Hello, Your Eminence.
Hello, Your Effluence. Nice to have you back, I think. Although I didn't run out of contact, I was putting people to sleep with my whatever style of speaking I have. But now that you're finally back, what do you want to talk about?
The idea that the Navy leading the search, which is the Royal Australian Navy, the black box Pinger, has for X years, the main training in simulation has been provided by our friends at Serco.
Wait till you see the email I got about 5 minutes ago.
So it seems that Serco is all over this from woe to go, because in 1996, the Malaysians decided they didn't have the in-house capability of teaching air traffic controllers the art of landing modern aircraft, so they outsourced it to Serco. So by 1996, right up to the present, Serco would have been in a position to teach Malaysian air traffic controllers, and I believe about 300 air traffic controllers from around 44 countries in that area, how to trigger the Boeing uninterruptible autopilot and land an aircraft without necessarily the consent of the captain or pilot at an airstrip overseen by a Serco contractor. It turns out there's a very strong probability that the tower operation on Diego Garcia is operated by Serco. Certainly, the island security is provided by British contractors, including G4S and Serco. So then to discover that they've been training the Australian Navy in simulated exercises, it suggests to me, Phil, that the pinging that you're hearing, or they're hearing, is actually being simulated. First of all, there's a number of serious problems with the ping, because it seems to be from memory around 33.5 kilohertz, 1000 hertz cycles per second, and the black box is supposed to generate at 37.5 kilohertz. So whether the simulator's are brain dead, stupid, corrupt, or perhaps sending a signal that they want to alert the public at large that there is a simulation, I don't know. What do you think? Over to you.
I think the game's over, David, and I think it's called We the People Win, and Serco, Holder, Obama, Hillary Clinton, Christine Marcy, Maureen Baginski, and anyone who would try to pit Malaysia against China, just like they tried to pit the United States against the Muslims on 9/11, they've gone back to their playbook one too many times, and now they've just walked into our honey trap, which is our black box. Now, if you look at this end of the black box, you'll see all sorts of historic things that qualify one of the members of Able Danger to have the ass of all those people, okay? But if you want to see the only thing that is necessary to expose the perpetrators of 9/11, Katrina, 7/7 in the UK, and Malaysia 370, some people think when I rotate the box, you're going to see what's taking these people down. And I think you can see something on this black box that's called an eagle, globe, and anchor, but you're looking the wrong direction. The thing that's taking these people down is way up there. And take a look at Luke 8:17 one more time that Maranatha put up. These people have been trying to play God for a long, long time. Unfortunately, most of us aren't going to fall to our knees and worship you pieces of human excrement like Hillary Clinton, who I told, and I can't believe the English, you won't believe what the English paper published today. The English paper called The Sovereign Independent lifted some fiction intact out of chapter 24. And if it were normal single-spaced typed paper, it would be a section of and it's mine, fiction, because if somebody gets a bullet, aim it right here, just like you did on Pat Tillman. And until then, piss off. And the only reason I said that to you guys is because if I said what I'm really thinking, Pastor Clyde might think, this is getting good now. But I did use the other term in what I just sent to some people in England, because over in England, that term that starts with FO, which doesn't stand for Field and Obama, or for flash override, in England, it's quite common for polite people to be sitting around a table, and I've seen it with my own eyes. I saw a retired cop who was his name's Burgess. This retired cop whose name Burgess was seated, he's about 56, he was seated next to a lady who was about 73, and we're in polite company in a nice restaurant, and he says, yeah, so then I told my police superintendent he could go FO, and the lady wasn't offended. Around here, people would be offended. It's not offensive in England, but maybe that's because they've been told to do that much more than most of us have, and because if somebody said that to a lot of us, we'd pull our gun out and shoot him. But not like Eric Holder shooting his mouth off yesterday. He was being bested. That's a good word. Wonder where that came from. he was being interviewed by Louis Gohmert, Gohmert. Maybe someone can put up that YouTube. It's about 1 minute and 19 seconds long. And Louis Gohmert, representative from somewhere, former federal judge, says, you really aren't very good at producing documents. And then Eric Holder, the little twerp that he is, probably couldn't get a job hauling equipment for the Shylights and Stylistics or the Delphonics, all of which will be in chapter 25. I don't appreciate guys with afros walking onto military property in 1970 and trying to stage some racial BS. Listen, you're painted black because that's what God did to you. I'm painted this color because that's what God did to me. You just take what God gives you and go with it, girl. In fact, go, girl. There's a song that has that before. It's by the Moody Blues. It'll come to me. We don't have time for that now. David, you asked me how things are going. Things are going exceedingly well. 9 out of the 12 nations searching are being provided content and suggestions by us. I don't want to tell anybody who, but I will show Pastor Clyde. And when we're on Friday, if anybody wants to ask Pastor Clyde if he saw a juicy email from an insider, he will either go, nope, Field didn't show me, or yep, it's juicy. David, unbeknownst to you, and I'll fill you in when we're off the air, one of our sources now is so hot that he has asked me to make sure I change the character name. And so in chapter 25, which is effectively already written, you will see the character name Kevin Meta, M-E-T-A, changed to Colonel Flagg. Now, many of you Americans or Canadians would know who Colonel Flagg is, but when chapter 25 goes up tonight, the entire world will know who, they'll think they know who Colonel Flagg is. And I might work into the title, if anybody thinks that I'm being egocentric here or arrogant or egotistical, then I can understand why you think that. I want to assure you that's not what's going on. So when I hold up my 8 fingers and 2 thumbs and place in view 3 rings, I might just title this Abel Danger Defeats Serco in a 3-ring circus. These rings here mean nothing, except for they're all historically significant to this pursuit. John McCain, traitor, my choice of words, he can do 2 things if he is offended at that. First of all, he can kneel down and kiss my rosy red rectum. Then he can file a libel complaint, which would be tossed out because I've been telling him to kiss my ass for over 3 years. John McCain besmirched the Naval Academy by getting one of these. He got one that had 1958 on it, and he tells the world that he was the lowest graduate in class of 58. He can't even screw up correctly. He was number 893 out of, he was 7 from the bottom. So he brags about being the dumbest, least performing guy in the class of 58. You're not even correct in bragging about how worthless you are, you little short hothead. Okay, the next ring, I got McCain's college. I got Obama's high school, Punahou. Once again, my class standing way trumps McCain's short stature. And I'm 12 years ahead of that little boy named Barry, who, as you can imagine, is going to be offered an opportunity to kneel down and kiss my ass. He's knelt down and kissed a whole lot of others. In fact, sometimes I think he gets about 180 degrees out of whack, and he's no longer looking at a derriere. But I digress. The third ring is got some initials on there. It says GMCC. Gee, that could be Global Mission Commander Chips. We'll just have to wait till chapter 25 comes out, but this one's mine, and this little piggy, we'll explain later, but it's got my DNA if you catch my drift. David, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. So it might be useful just to go through this paragraph that went out this morning and just recap on the terminology because it gets a little confusing. Plum City, April 9th, 2014. United States Marine Field McConnell has linked Hotel Red Switch networks operated by Nicholas Soames and his Serco CEO brother Rupert for the MI3 Inholders Livery Company to a hack by Serco director Maureen Baginski and Julian Assange of MH Flight 370 Avionics, apparently intended to simulate black box pings and have the Australian Navy searching where the plane is not. What I just want to talk about quickly is the Hotel Red Switch Network, which is kind of extraordinary because I would say this dates back at least to the Second World War, if not prior. And it's a mechanism when allies, particularly Anglophone or English-speaking Anglosphere allies, come together in mutually supportive battle order, that the commander-in-chief, or whoever's in charge of that particular theater of war, can override the chit-chat that goes on down all the way into the trenches. For example, let's take Afghanistan and the maneuvers of the 2 platoons associated with the murder of Pat Tillman. There's a Humvee that breaks down, a platoon breaks up into 2 companies, Company 1 and Company 2. One of the companies takes the Humvee, the broken down Humvee on the road to Kos. The other one goes into a ravine. And then there is what appears to me as a flash override, which breaks into the command structure of the local captains and officers and overrides the decision to take the Humvee broken down to Kos and orders that local commander, whether it's Company 1 or Company 2 or Platoon 1, Section 1, I forget which one, what the name is. Did you just say the name?
Yeah, it's a squad. A platoon has 3 squads. And Pat Tillman was in serial. I've got it on the license plate. Watch
Serial,
this.
that's it.
No, it's not it. Serial is his call sign. And Kevin, what's his name, Tillman, his call sign was the opposite. But we don't have to try to recall stuff we can't recall. We don't have to have any pressure on ourselves. All we have to do is see if Atomic Betty or Sherlock, not Sherlock, Jack Mack, or myself, one of us 3, Jack Mack, Sherlock, or myself, is going to put up Pat Tillman's license plate, and then we'll know what the call sign was. I think it was Serial 2. It's on the license plate. But the point is, you had 3 players there. You had Serial 1, Serial 2 that had been ordered officially to split. And then you had an errant shot heard around the world. And so even though 1 and 2 had been told to split to provide mutual support against an emerging threat, they turned toward each other, which is exactly what Serco, G4S, and these generals apparently wanted them to do. General Cody, General Abiza, General Petraeus, General Dempsey, General McChrystal, General Kinzinger, and General Pharisee. Well, I didn't say you did it. I said apparently, because you haven't responded to my offering of you guys to come clean and spend a little time in jail for participating in the cover-up of the assassination, that's murder, of Pat Tillman, because when his brother and he, let's say one's salt and one's pepper, when the 2 Tillmans are separated and they hear a shot, boom, they both instinctively, not because they're brothers, but because they're military professionals that the first faggot doesn't like, and he can kiss my ass too. Anyway, they turn back to each other to provide mutual support, and as they're coming towards each other, somebody gets a good look at the forehead of Pat Tillman and fires 3 rounds. In fact, it's funny, I got this size 50-cent thing. They put those 3 rounds through a pattern in his forehead that was the size of a quarter. The significance of that? Well, it had to be an automatic burst, because when the first round hit, and it was a 223, but even a small round, it's called MV squared. M is mass, V is velocity, and squared means you multiply it by itself. 3 squared is 3
Flash
times.
override field.
Yeah, go ahead.
Energy is a half MV squared, momentum is MV. So you're actually talking about MV.
Yeah, what did I say?
You said MV squared.
Okay, what is MV squared?
Well, it's twice the energy. Energy is mass times velocity squared, a half. And momentum, and there's a conservation of linear momentum. I'm just being a bit perfectionist. So I want to raise your game a bit, Phil.
I think you just walked into my honey trap. Tell me
I
exactly what.
don't want to be that because you keep inviting people to kiss your rectum.
Yeah, but not my friends, my foes. And you got to know who
Oh,
your
good.
friend. Okay, what is MV squared again?
A half mv squared is energy.
I didn't ask that, David. Pretend I'm a lawyer. Answer the question. What is MV
mv
squared?
squared is just a creation. It's an artifact. It's meaningless.
Okay, what's MV?
mv is momentum, mass times velocity.
Okay, I'm corrected. And you're stood down for another 20-minute monologue. Yeah. Anyway, the fact is that the MV, the mass times velocity that pinged on his head, if it wasn't immediately followed by two other pingers, ping, 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 his head would have moved sufficiently so the pattern would have been a lot bigger than the size of a quarter. So whoever is behind that SA-80 pulling the trigger, I recommend I suggest that it's a private contractor, which brings us around to Blue Mountain G4S, because SAS guys may or may not do that. They may not. We actually have an SAS veteran in our group. Now, I think I'll turn it back over to David, because otherwise he might go try to get another gig on radio and lower himself to taking some of the offers we've had as recently as 2 today. And I don't have time for this. In fact, yesterday I took a day off from writing from about 3 p.m. until I went to bed. And I got a good night's sleep. I had a lot of great dreams. None of them involved pastel that I can recall, but I don't recall them all. But I certainly recall most. But David, I have a bundle of energy, and chapter 25 will be done tonight. The only question is, will Tim be able to put it up? And I think he will, because he was the guy that told me to get some rest. So over to you.
Yeah, so the point I want to make about the Pat Tillman murder is you've got what appear to be quite professional and capable military personnel, officers and men, frontline men, well armed, well trained, doing their stuff. And then somehow there is a man in the middle attack on their command structure, and they're turned against each other. Embedded in one or the other of the two serials is a hitman that is and it's a contract hit with an SA-80 bullpup gun, I think is the one that best fits the ballistics that you just described, you know, the 3 punch holes in the head in the size of a dime.
Quarter.
And then the subsequent behavior of the people who would ordinarily investigate that crime, not necessarily with great forensic skills, but presumably according to certain military standards, breaks down. And within 24 hours, as I understand it, the corpse of Pat Tillman is delivered to a doctor naked. That is, it's been stripped of its uniform. Now, why would you strip the corpse of a uniform? Why would you put the uniform in a 44-gallon drum and set light to it? What does that remind us of? Well, that's exactly what happened to the uniform of Russell Williams in Canada after he'd been found guilty of the double murder. And the Governor General of Canada, and we'll come to that in a minute, David Johnson, authorized 4 men from the Trenton Air Force Base to go to the cottage of Russell Williams and pick up all the belongings and uniforms and take them to the Trenton Air Force Base and pop them in a 44-gallon drum and burn them. So it's the same MO. So the important thing about that phrase, the Hotel Red Switch Network, is that people who stay at 4-star and 5-star hotels, such as the pedophile pimp mother Ann Dunham and her little boy Barry in the Lahore Hilton in Pakistan in 1981, they've been given access, and the only company in the world that could give those kind of people access to the Red Switch Network, they've been given access by Serco. And what that allows those people to do is that they can, presenting themselves as a senior commander or someone associated with the National Command Authority, normally the President of the United States, they can insert an order into a command structure that has to be obeyed by people further down the line, because they have no means of independently verifying or answering the famous question, quo warranto, by whose authority. If it comes through the Red Switch Network, and it's been labeled FO, as you point out, or flash override, it has to be obeyed by people down the command structure, including the spoliation of evidence such as the burning of the uniform of Pat Tillman, which would normally show, I would think, from a ballistic point of view or forensic point of view, that the gun that took him out by 3 bullets in the head was actually very close to the body. I would say within 6 feet or 12 feet. Does that sound plausible, Field? Over to you.
Yeah, you'd have to be close. And I think it's very plausible. And I think they weren't that picky about which Tillman they got. I think what these perverts, including Christine, Marcy, Maureen Baginski, Hillary Rodham Clinton, let's see, perverts. Oh, yes. Barry Swatero, Eric Horse's ass Holder. What they're trying to do is they're trying to take down the United States of America, thinking they can do it because somebody in Britain or some global bankers say, don't worry, we'll protect you. Well, there's a little mobilization being contemplated for Nevada right now, where the federal people are trying to take over private farm and ranch land, and the federal people are going to have their asses handed to them one way or the other. It's a matter of how many felonies they, the feds, want to commit before they stand down or be stood down or be put down. I got to read something right now that was just put up, and David, I'll give it back to you as soon as I find this. In fact, I may not find it, but Joy S. just posted something, and it's worth Romans 1:30. Okay, I'll be done in just a minute, David. If this is what she thinks it is, Romans 1:30. I don't think Romans goes to 1:30. Oh, yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. Thank you. I'm going to back up and read from the beginning because I've been taught to do that. Not the real beginning, where he said, let there be light, but from Romans 1:28 on. Furthermore, since they did not think it worthwhile to retain the knowledge of God, he gave them over to, this is great. Yeah, in other words, these PFers, let me give you some of the PFers. I want to be fair to both parties. The Line Republic Party and the Line Democratic Party. Rudy Giuliani, Alexander Haig, John McCain, Christine Marcy, Jamie Gorelick, Janet Reno, Janet Napolitano, Hillary Rodham Clinton, Maureen Baginski, J.M. Cohen. You know what you can do, Jay, don't you? Yeah, you guessed it. And anyway, these people that are so perverted that they think that the United Kingdom, the Crown agents, are not going to put them under the bus, but they are going to protect them. No, they're not, you naive little nitwits. And I'm talking to you, Barack Obama, naive little nitwit, chuming mulatto. Let me read what the good book has to say about you guys. And then I'll give it to David. And then I'll read a lengthier portion. Good choice of words. From Jeremiah. But this is it. And this is talking to the friends of Satan who are the enemies of God, who are out there in Nevada right now, and they're also trying to cover up the fact that the United States of America took Malaysia 370 until someone proves to me otherwise. And you're going to have to wait for chapter 25 to find out what it is I'm alleging. Furthermore, since they did not think it worthwhile to retain the knowledge of God, well, that indicates at one point they had the knowledge of God because they didn't retain it. Sort of like you can't say anything about Jesus Christ in the military cemeteries, at the military academies, or in the courts of the United States of America. Well, all you people that say you can't, you can all line up and kiss my ass. Because guess what? That authority comes from God, not from you little twerps. And I don't care if the British people don't like God anymore. Some do. I talked to many who do, and they asked me to help continue to help expose the pedophile nature of the control of the United Kingdom going back at least to the 1950s. And I don't think that Lord Mountbatten was playing taffy pull with the boys in the boat in 1940. So 1940 can't be in the 50s, it's in the 40s. So I'm guessing right now off the top of my head, for 70 years or more, the leadership of the United Kingdom has been controlled by pedophiles. And if David Cameron or his small four-headed wife want to take exception, yep, you guessed it, they can get in line and stand on Main Street, and I'll take 100 people an hour to kiss my ass, so you have to kiss quickly. Back to the proper word and the proper mindset here. Because of this, God gave them over, oops, wrong paragraph, but that was good, that was shameful lust. Furthermore, since they did not think it worthwhile to retain the knowledge of God, he gave them over to a depraved mind, to do what ought not to be done. They have become filled with every kind of wickedness, evil, greed, and depravity. They are full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, malice. They are gossips, slanderers. Here it comes. God haters. God haters. God haters. Oh, that's all you get. 3 chances, Eric. Horse's ass holder. Insolent, arrogant, boastful. They invent ways of doing evil. They disobey their parents. Christine Marcy ought to get about 27 doses of that one. They invent ways of doing evil. They disobey their parents. They are senseless, faithless, heartless, ruthless. Although they know God's righteous decree that those who do such things deserve death, they not only continue to do these very things, but also approve of those who practice them. Don't come practicing them in Plum City or you'll look like Swiss cheese. And to this I do firmly, I'm not sure what that word is. David, while I firmly affirm, which is poor English, but very threatening, and you know, sometimes Eric Holder might tell Louis Gohmert, don't go there, pal. I'm telling Eric Holder, don't come here, pal. And I'm not a bluffing mulatto dropout from the stylistics. David, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Field. Well, I think the power of Eric Holder very much associated with the power of your sister, because they both became the custodians, joint custodians of the United States Department of Justice Asset Forfeiture Fund in 1984, which I understand last year took in $8 billion of shakedown money, including from a company that I have the greatest respect for, British Petroleum, because they framed British Petroleum with that blowout in the Gulf with the Deepwater Horizon. But I digress. So I just want to come back to this Hotel Red Switch network. In order to finance the procurement of a global Red Switch network that offers travelers or guests of the National Command Authority, normally the President of the United States, the opportunity to engage in flash override frauds on the United States of America, well, it takes a great deal of money and organization and basically a fundamental rationalization of the international hotel industry into large chains with a single controller at the top of each chain, which has been compromised. So the chain of particular interest for MH370 is the Westin Hotel chain, which is owned by the Starwood Group, which also owns the Sheraton. So which hotels might we be interested in as places to muster the hit teams furnished with Red Switch networks to execute the hijack of MH370? Well, one obvious Westin hotel is the Kuala Lumpur Westin Hotel, which I don't know if has line of sight to the Petronas Towers, but if, as in your opinion, the first
Flash override. Flash override.
Go ahead.
You didn't read chapter 24, did you, David?
Yes, I did. I know that you've specified the Petronas Towers.
No, but did you see the picture of a room in the hotel?
No, I didn't.
See, I caught him again. You should read this stuff, because even though it appears to be rubbish to the enemies of God, what I put in chapter 24, unless I put it in 23, because I can't keep track of all this stuff, but if nobody beats me to it, I'll go find the picture. I put a picture in either of those chapters that our group on that, it included myself and you know who I'm talking about when I say Atomic Betty with blonde hair? Yeah, Atomic Betty and Chips and another female. We were in room 3131 that had a view of the Petronas Towers so that we could sit there and watch. The view is taken at day, but we can watch at night equally well. And with our black box, if we would have seen an A330 or anything that's an air-breathing threat to the Petronas Towers come flying in at around 0212, write that down, 0212, we'll check out the accuracy later, then we would have used something in our black box. And of course, our black box is better than the black box that went to China, but we have the power to interrupt, and they have the power to corrupt. And their power is about ready to be withdrawn, canceled, trumped. So David, yes, I know which rooms in the hotel at Kuala Lumpur have a field of view to the Petronas Towers. And in case other people have failed to read this chicken manure that I write, don't let this be wasted on you. The Petronas Towers are the manifestation globally of non-usury debt. Someone who is an Israeli citizen cannot get legally into Malaysia. So if you put two and two together and you back engineer it, who would gain by knocking down the symbol of non-usury debt? Gee, probably the same people that knocked down World Trade and World Trade 1 and 2, because they wanted to knock down the symbols of the United States financial power, and they wanted to make it weaker, meaning the United States weaker financially, weaker morally, weaker resource-wise. The little sissies over in the United Kingdom that kept their royal pedophiles in the late 1800s, 1700s, late 1600s, when the thinkers and the workers from the United Kingdom got on boats and came to a land that offered promise. You guys can click your little heels and try to conceal the fact that it's Serco, the United Kingdom, not the real good United Kingdom like David Vetch or Bill Maloney or Brian Garish ascribed to, but the powerful United Kingdom, their power is being stripped too from the inside out. The last thing on earth evil wants is for the United Kingdom and the United States to maintain the power they had in the late 1980s through the late 1990s. And the chink in our armor, I don't want to be so insensitive or dangerous as to speak the name William Jefferson Clinton, so I won't do that for two reasons. I don't want to die with a bullet in the back of my head. In fact, I'd rather it in the front of my head so I can shoot them as they approach me. But William Jefferson Clinton, that's not his real name, so he can't file defamation or any of those other candy-ass legal terms. His real name is William Jefferson Rockefeller, and so he can't sue me under that either, because it's a little bit late. I mean, in 1992 to 2000, he was trying to destroy America from the inside out. He didn't get it done. Then he worked from 96, I'm talking about Bill Clinton, from 96 until 2000, he worked with Jamie Gorelick, Christine Marcy, and Janet Reno to plan the attack of 9/11 in concert with Serco and GAPAN, and the endorsement of, at the very least, the Crown agents, and probably with the evil people that mislead Catholics and they hang their hats in the Vatican. So David, that's the short version of my answer. The complete answer will be in chapter 25. And I can't remember, did you ask me a question? And if you did I answer it?
I'm sure you did, Phil. I just want to carry on with this Red Switch network with another example.
Oh, yeah.
So when the USS Cole, the most advanced frigate in the United States Navy, was heading past the port of Aden in Yemen, ordinarily it would have been refueled at sea. And the commanding officer on the bridge of the United States ship Cole, USS Cole, received a command to go into the harbor directly in view of the Intercontinental Hotel in Aden and dock such that created an explosive resonant position where a Zodiac bringing explosives in between the dock and the ship stood a good chance of blowing the most advanced frigate in the United States Navy to 1,000,000 pieces. Positioned probably a few meters away from the main magazine and got a partial explosion. I think they killed about 18 people. But again, you see the impact of being able to do a flash override on the military command system of a hierarchical organization like the United States Navy. That is to say, the people in that chain of command, they're obliged to obey what they believe to be coming by way of an order or authority through the flash override capability, because they cannot conceive of the possibility that someone might have hacked it. Well, it's wake-up time, folks. It's been hacked, and it's been hacked by Serco. And Serco's been hacking chains of command since their previous name, which was RCAGB 1928, previous to that Marconi, and previous to that the Electric Telegraph Company. And let me give you a classic example when the previous incarnation, Serco, hacked the chain of command, and that was RCAGB in November of 1941 with Pearl Harbor. So Serco hacked the chain of command associated with the defensive around Pearl Harbor, and they did it from the hotel in Waikiki Beach, I believe. Is it the Waikiki Beach Hotel? That's not the proper name of the hotel, but there's a hotel, I think they call it the Pink Palace in Hawaii, that directly overlooked Pearl Harbor. Do you remember the name, Phil?
Sure. It's called the Pink Palace. I think it's a Waikiki Hilton, my guess. It doesn't matter what I think or what you think. We got the world's most powerful, quick, and lethal chat room. They'll tell us. But that hotel has been around forever. It's a landmark. I've been in that hotel. My deceased father-in-law spent time in that hotel in World War II. The hotel has a place in history, and it looks like you, David, and myself, and the group that cooperates with us, including this message I just got, which I haven't even read yet, but I'll read it right now, real time, if it doesn't expose somebody. We are assisting the Bundys in Bunkerville, Nevada, against the feds using their recently, I hate this. Anyway, somebody has just heard our message and our offer to help the family in Nevada. So as soon as we get off the radio, I'll whip out my gun and find my way to my weapons cache 2.3 miles up the road, and I'll get some heavy hardware and go to Nevada if I have to. I think I don't have to do that, but I would in a heartbeat. But the reason I think I don't have to do that is we're going to kill them with the truth. And as you can clearly see, somebody just shot me an email. In fact, I'll go back. It's significant where this came from in terms of area code, and I won't share anything but the area code. And so just bear with me, David. And then I'll put the area code out. And oh, that was a message. Okay, hang on. Anybody know where area code 707 is? But while somebody looks up area code 707, there's been a song in the most recent chapter, I think, about a big old jet airliner taking me away from home. That was Steve Miller in the band, and it talks about a 707. And in the Early Morning Rain by Canadian's poet of all time, Gordon Lightfoot, he talks about being drunk and cold on the runway as the 707 flies off, and that's in the early morning rain. That's a great song, and I think Sherlock will remind me to put Early Morning Rain, and there's another country song called Silver Wings, and what we'll do, oh, I got the greatest image, and I don't know if nobody's seen it. Oh yeah, oh, nice gun. Let's see who this is. Mensa Max, big gun. Yeah, you know, the big gun, frankly, is God. And if people don't want to believe that, it doesn't really matter if you believe it or not, because he'll protect you even if you don't believe in him. The analogy is if a farmer that's 2 miles up the road has a crop that needs rain, God will water it for him because he believes in God, and God is going to support that farmer. Now, God plays fair, and if he has to forego rain for a believer because he's surrounded by pagans, He won't do that. He'll give the pagans the reign too. And probably because he knows that at some point they may come around to the right way of thinking. David, over to you.
Yeah, Field. Well, looking at big guns, I'm thinking probably that the Serco FAA contract towers in Hawaii probably deployed a guy to kill Loretta Fuddy with a ricin gun, but it would have been very discreet, very small. But I digress. Going back to this business of the hotel red switch network, I think it's worth emphasizing. So the kinds of people that frequent these hotels and become bonded to a community which is entitled to a flash override privilege are the kind of people that frequent the bathhouses of Chicago. So let me just back up here. When those messages came in from Benghazi and images probably of Christopher Stevens being raped and tortured in the Benghazi hospital, they would have been backhauled. Well, no, let me correct that. The technology available to backhaul those images in real time would be available through red switch network access to the Skynet military satellite communication systems operated by Serco and Airbus. So if an individual in the White House was so minded and had that privilege, he could be nestling in the arms of his male lover, perhaps named Reggie Love, and they would be able, in a discreet corner, perhaps not too discreet, after all, the White House moral code has collapsed to the point where I imagine it's reached all the way through to the staff in the White House, but the two male lovers could be nestled in each other's arms, watching in real time a backhauled snuff film of the ambassador to Libya being sodomized and tortured and killed. That's pretty remarkable when you think how that undermines the country that has, what is it, the light on the hill reputation. And of course, beating in the hearts or the minds of Americans, the average American, I think that light still exists. But unfortunately, with this red switch network, a group of ruthless deviants, compromised by virtue of having stayed at a 4-star or 5-star hotel and being provided with a child to amuse them through the night, it actually is fascinating in terms of the balance of power. Because we tend to think when people show up at the Bilderberg meeting, there are powerful guests who come to those hotels and intimidate innocent staff just struggling to earn a living, washing up and washing dishes. But what happens if it's the reverse? The people who show up at the Bilderberg conference, they're showing up because they're terrified of what might happen if they don't show up. What happens if the staff in those hotels have been borrowed or groomed at a prison hospital run by Christine Marcy, Field's sister, where they might have been subjected to the most horrific psychological torment that's effectively lobotomized them? The balance of power then is with the staff and the general management of the hotel, and they bring in the guests to remind them of who's boss. So little Billy Clinton, theoretically, I suppose, with his Clinton Foundation and his millions and his reputation, well, what of his reputation, I don't know, he's kicked out of Oxford for rape, but anyway, he shows up at the Port Douglas Hotel in Queensland, but maybe he shows up because he's been told to show up and he's terrified of what would happen if he didn't. And the reason why Serco and the Starwood Group put him in that Sheraton Hotel is they wanted him to watch what was about to happen to the US Navy Command Center in the Pentagon as a result of a man-in-the-middle attack on the flash override capability of the Pentagon City Hotel overlooking the crime scene. So little Billy Clinton, with his Peyronie's disease, is watching a backhauled image taken from the closed-circuit television camera on the roof of the Pentagon City Hotel looking down on the Pentagon lawn at the assembly of the triage team from the Pentagon City before the explosion, which allegedly killed a U.S. Naval Academy alumnus, Captain Gerald DeConto, the duty officer. So I think it's just worth harping on that, because unless we understand that the enemy will never present itself as a frontline battle, it will use agents who are expendables, people like Pat Tillman. It will also use decoy techniques so that you believe the Jews are coming for you, the Jesuits, the Knights of Malta, the Illuminati, the lizard blood people, the royalty, etc., etc. But sitting in the shadows are the people who control man-in-the-middle attacks using the flash override capability, and they never materialize because that's the personification of evil. Now, you talked, I think, about the pedophilia going back to perhaps the 18th or 16th, 17th century. Certainly the mistress of Charles II, Nell Gwyn, a wonderful Restoration actress, she was a child prostitute in a brothel run by her mother for the Royal Navy. And she eventually got hold of King Charles II. He was very loyal to her, gave her a lot of money, turned her bastard children into aristocrats, and rightly or wrongly, they persist to this day. And they're deeply embedded in the United States of America and Canada and Australia and the United Kingdom. And it's not an individual that's at fault here. We've got a matrix that's taken centuries to mature. Now, I started off with saying about the two hotels that were key to the abduction and hijacking of MH370. So you've got the Starwood-owned Westin Hotel in Kuala Lumpur with a view over the Petronas Towers. And inside the rooms of that building could have been people trained by the Malaysian Aviation Training Academy that was outsourced to Serco. And those people would know exactly what was necessary from a password and a hacking point of view to take a plane landing at the Kuala Lumpur International Airport and divert it into any target they could see out of the window, which might be the Petronas Towers. So that's a hypothesis. It's speculation, but I think it's a very legitimate one, that one of the targets for MH370 was to crash into the Petronas Tower.
Hey, David, can I give you a fire hose? Yeah, I want to. Yeah, this is getting so easy to defeat these people that I'm going to go into hiding behind a military flying name tag. And unfortunately, you can't see this. But the reason I'm acting childish is because I'm acting childish. Holder, Obama, Hillary, Bill, McCain, Giuliani, Marcy, Gorelick are being childish. They're being childishly naive about thinking that the same spirit and the same unwillingness to capitulate that made the United States of America at one point the greatest nation on earth, don't think for a minute that that spirit's left us whole scale. And I'll just use this analogy right in front of anybody who is watching via live stream. Let me get out my pea shooter. This is my small one. Let's just count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I have 9 bullets. If somebody from the federal government takes exception to anything I say, including that everyone sold out to the United States Senior Executive Service, NSA, WW, Crown Agents, and FEMCOP Inc., when I say that those collective agencies can all line up and play rock, paper, scissors to see who gets to kiss my ass first, all you have to do is bring more than 9 bullets Friday for the radio show, and you may be able to impose your will on me. But you know, the problem is, it wouldn't do any good because God has already imposed his will on me, and he knows who I am, even if I take my glasses off, even if I take my cargo name tag off, even if somebody takes all my clothes off, like they did to Pat Tillman, Russell Williams, and one of those guys, so yes, Christopher Stevens. Well, you can take everything you want from me except the truth and salvation, and the rest of this stuff is chicken shit. David, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. So in Beijing, you have a Westin hotel owned by the Starwood Group, which has been equipped with a satellite Wi-Fi link to the United Kingdom Ministry of Defence Skynet satellite communication system by Serco. That is to say, selected guests at the Starwood Westin Hotel in Beijing can be given, while traveling, a flash override capability to break into the command system of the United States and do whatever they want. Maybe place a bet, maybe buy some shares in a company that's about to go up because of what's about to happen, or maybe sell some shares short in a company where the shares might go down because suddenly people think that Boeing aircraft are not safe. And of course they're not safe. They're being equipped with the Boeing uninterruptible autopilot, which can be hijacked from outside the cockpit by forces that mean evil to the pilot and the crew and the passenger. So Serco equipped the Westin Hotel in Beijing with a red switch capability that would give selected guests traveling with the authority of the National Command Authority the ability to break into the United States military command structure. So you'd expect, of course, there'd been a great deal of due diligence done on who got that capability or that facility. Well, lo and behold, after MH370 had disappeared, Barry sends his beard, Michelle Obama, in Air Force One, which has been modified to support the Red Switch network, to Beijing, and she shows up with her mummy, and you wouldn't want to go 3 rounds on a dark night with the mummy, and her 2 very sweet, I'm sure, daughters. She goes to the Westin Hotel, and she starts telling the Chinese they should be encouraging free speech. But was that just a cover? My guess is she's actually got the red switch flash override authority to negotiate. And remember, she's as thick as a bag of hammers, but she does have a pedigree in negotiating intellectual property agreements, because that was her role at the Sidley Austin law firm when women interns were being groomed by the leader of the Weather Underground organization, Bernardine Dawn. So you can see there's a very, very strong probability that Michelle Obama has been compromised sexually in a hotel, such that she gets the authority to act with the flash override, but it comes at a price. That is to say, she would never get that authority unless she was compromised, so that she never revealed the underlying secret. So you've got the 2 bookends for this conspiracy. The Westin Hotel in Kuala Lumpur, which could be staffed with pedophile entrapment experts and could have guests that include people with the kind of skills necessary to hijack a plane from outside the cockpit through the Skynet satellite communication system operated by Serco, and take over the plane and fly it either to a safe landing or into a high-value target, which would be pre-insured, because that's how the conspirators pay themselves off. They have prior information of a catastrophe about to happen, and you can actually buy what is called cat bond insurance. Cat bond insurance is short for catastrophe bond insurance, where, let's say, the objective was from the sponsor to insure themselves against both of the twin towers of the Petronas towers coming down at the same time. They put up $50 million, and the investors who don't expect that to happen put up $5 billion. I don't know, I'm just out of the line. And the beauty of that is the lawyers acting between those 2 limits, the escrow lawyers that take the money from both sides, they make money whether the money goes from the left to the right or the right to the left. And that's why you have this moral vacuum moving into the major law firms, where everything is about extorting the clients, whatever side you're acting on, either as the plaintiff's lawyer or the defendant lawyer. So let me put in now the next paragraph, and we'll look at the closing stages of the farce in the southern Indian Ocean. We got McConnell claims that former UK Defence Minister Nicholas Soames hired Serco director Maureen Baginski and Assange, that's Julian Assange, to hack the Red Switch network and disrupt the Distributed Interactive Simulation, DIS, of large-scale exercises so that Australian Navy officers would accept a flash override from a bogus command authority and hunt for black boxes and simulated pings in 5,800 meters of water in the Diamantina Trench. Now, there's an overarching theme here with these people who get inside the soft underbelly of the 4-star and 5-star hotels through pedophile entrapment. It's very important to them to humiliate heteropatriarchal leaders. Where did I hear this term heteropatriarchal? Well, until I discovered the previous term, les lesbiennes radicales, I'd never heard of the term heteropatriarchal. But translating the term les lesbiennes radicales, that came into common currency in Quebec and in France, in Paris specifically, in the 1980s. It doesn't require a lot of imagination to think what the agenda of a radical lesbian is. But the term heteropatriarchal is interesting, because for radical lesbians, heteropatriarchal does not just apply to men or white men or Caucasian white men. It applies to women who fit comfortably in a society which has, I suppose, endured for hundreds of years. That is a society based on family, where traditionally the man has gone out, got the food, defended the family against threat to the best of his ability, and the women have nurtured children and performed as mothers, caring, loving mothers. But from a radical lesbian point of view, of course, that's deeply offensive. They are as offended by a woman who falls into what they would describe as the family trap and looks after their children in their most vulnerable years, as by the man. So they'll kill both, and children.
They're not killing this one, David.
No, they aren't. But if you look at the murders, or the virtual murders of Sandy Hook, you can see that this is, well, we understand if it took place as it's said to have taken place, it's a bunch of psychopaths or psychologically lobotomized Zigbies or whatever. But I find that totally consistent with the crimes of radical lesbians, because there were 20 children and 6 adults killed. The 6 adults, I believe, were all women. The 20 children, ages from 6 to 7, were shot up to 8 to 11 times in the head, each. That's a lot of bullets for a little head. Now, Adam Lanza is supposed to have died the day before. Over in a jail called the Ghana Correctional Institute, half a mile from the Sandy Hook Elementary School, there's a bunch of some medium, some exceedingly dangerous men and women. And going through the blurb about the Ghana Correctional Institute, apparently there are 133 Angel Tree children associated with that prison. And Angel Tree, as we've covered previously, it's a subset of the Prison Fellowship charity. And as I understand it, Angel Tree are basically associated with an incarcerated parent who gives permission to someone representing the charity to contact the child in whatever condition they find themselves, might be a foster home or whatever, and provide them with a present around the Christmas time. And I don't want to go into great details, but that smells to me, it creates an extraordinary vulnerability and pressure on the parent in the jail, because to deny or to approve that permission could result in very serious penalties inside the jail and subsequent to the child outside. But I digress. So going back to Michelle Obama in the Westin Hotel in Beijing, I believe she was negotiating with her counterparts in the Communist People's Liberation Army, which was founded on pedophilia. Most people don't understand, in the battle between Chiang Kai-shek, the nationalist leader, and Mao Zedong, was totally subverted by British intelligence, providing some pedophile entrapment specialists to Mao during the Long March. And one of the most successful was a woman called Jane Addams. And Jane Addams, and I think they were the Sung sisters, secured access for Mao Zedong to peasant children who he abused, and as I understand it, would sometimes torture and kill. But everything would be recorded on camera. So whilst he's talking about the Great Revolution and Mao the great leader, he would know, and his entourage would know, that should any of those images be shown to the Chinese people, well, the revolution wouldn't have much chance of success, and whatever the equivalent of a blowtorch over the genitalia would be probably too good for this scumbag, who incidentally also, I believe, was responsible for 80 million dead. So Michelle Obama comes back to Chicago, the Westin hotels in Chicago that might be consistent with this Serco technique of blackmail, extortion, and sabotage. Well, yes, there are. I think there's 3. So she's moving through a 4-star and 5-star hotel community where the hotels have been modified for the Red Switch network. So wherever she is, in any of the guest rooms in the public space, she gets, as long as she does what she's told, access to the flash override capability that breaks into the chain of command of the General Command Authority. Now, what else is in Chicago that might encourage Michelle Obama and Barack Obama to do exactly what they're told? Well, apparently the parking fines in Chicago are administered by Serco agents. Now, doesn't that give a wonderful opportunity when you're parking a car prior to going into a hotel? You can be observed by Serco surveillance specialists who may very well have a tag on their ankle or a subcutaneous chip. So Nicholas Soames and his cronies back in London can monitor where his assets are and the target assets, which might be a law-abiding citizen in Chicago who might one day want to run as mayor. But they can't have a law-abiding citizen of Chicago run as mayor with any chance of success, because power would slip away from these people. Now, in the limit, of course, Serco was given the contract by Nicholas Soames's predecessor, and he was the UK Minister of Defence. His predecessor, or one of his predecessors, was his uncle, Duncan Sands, who gave Serco, this is a private company, the right to operate the 4-minute warning of an intercontinental ballistic missile attack on the United Kingdom. 4 minutes is not a lot of time, folks. If you're listening in the UK, think about it.
David,
Please.
flash override. How is the only way that Serco could know that there should be an attack in 4 minutes? There's only one way.
Well, satellite.
No, you're thinking conventionally. The only way they could know there's going to be an attack in 4 minutes if they're the ones that are attacking.
Correct.
Well, otherwise they can watch a missile go off all they want, but until they track the azimuth all the way to the target for the entire flight time of the target, they have no idea what the ultimate target is, because the targeting can be switched, just like the flight plan of MH370 was switched. And in chapter 25, I already sent this to you, and I sent it to Agent 99, and I sent it to Freeport Girl and Atomic Betty. I've already written this, so it's not like I'm going to make it up when I go home. And see, do I have any power to do anything? Yes, as a matter of fact, I have the power to scare bad people, because I'm claiming that when MH370 took off, it performed the flight plan that had been agreed to by the dispatcher and the captain up to point A. At point A, the aircraft was electronically hijacked, so the autopilot stays on, but electronically flight plan B from present position to destination is entered. The aircraft turns around, and it's, in terms of azimuth, it's pointing right at the Petronas Towers, and the intention is to go blow down the towers. Now, keep in mind, this would have been about 2:12 in the morning, so the damage to humans would be as little as possible, because even in Malaysia and the hardworking Asian and Pacific Rim area, where people are working way too hard thinking they'll get ahead, even they don't work all night long. So by hitting it at 2:12 in the morning, knocking down the towers, Serco, and I'll just leave it right at that. And if Serco wants to take exception to my putting it on you, well, first of all, you can kiss my ass, and second of all, you can call me into court, and you can have the judge hear me tell Serco to kiss my ass under oath, because I'm not bluffing. Okay, somebody figured out, uh-oh, this doesn't look good, because the crew isn't flying the airplane because they're not on flight path A, which is from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. So when Rogue Party number 1 takes the aircraft and aims it at the Petronas Tower so they can knock it down at night, they're knocking down the world symbol of non-usury debt and striking an academic blow to Malaysia, simply because they don't allow Israeli citizens to come visit Malaysia, which is probably smart. White hats took it, and instead of allowing it to go to target B, the white hats, and I'm saying this can be fact or this can be fiction, we'll find out. I'm saying that UCLA, YUKLA-27, and AWACS took the aircraft for benign reasons that are good for the United States and good for Malaysia and good for IBM, which had a offer on the table to buy Freescale that I don't know anybody but us is talking about. But somebody got sort of nervous when IBM was about ready to inherit Freescale and those patents. So an interesting question to the chat room, and this is spontaneous. David doesn't know what's coming. Neither does Pastor Clyde. Anybody in the chat room have time to find out if the Rothschilds had big hooks at IBM? And for the benefit of chapter 25, which I'm not going to change anything, I'm not going to come off and get less aggressive no matter what. And if I would slip on a banana peel and die, if that chapter is not up by 4 in the morning and once more the dawning has brought out the wanting in me, if that chapter is not on the internet by 4 o'clock a.m. Central, which is 5 o'clock a.m. in Ottawa and Gatineau, I would suggest that the 3 ladies that have the safety copies make them public in a way that doesn't track back to you. In fact, just talk to Jack Mack and Rooster and Craig Peterson and David. And nothing's going to happen to me between now and 4 in the morning when once more the dawning has brought out the wanting in me. You know, most of us want the same thing. We want peace. We want health. We want food. We want shelter. And we want somebody to love. And I don't mean like in the Reggie Love love. That's not love. That's lust. I mean love. Care for. like a mother cares for her offspring. Now, the human mothers are say offspring, that's offensive. Well, I'm not talking about human mothers, although they're included at the highest end of this pecking order. I'm talking about the mother goat who's probably in labor right now and needs me to get off the radio. And am I saying that a mother goat or triplet baby goats is more important than solving MH370? No, I'm not. Read my lips. 3870 is already solved. The knowledge that I have, 100% of it, the knowledge that David has, as it pertains to who did what to whom in 370, it's already where it needs to be. And now we can just let time run out. And the time's run out on the batteries. And something that most of you have been lulled into sleep and forgotten about is on the 13th of April, which is Sunday of this week. The time runs out for ALPA to meet my demand of 15.6 million, and they're not going to meet it because they're cowards. And they probably don't like it when I mention their names by name, as I'm about ready to right now. First, four ALPA presidents who've suppressed the truth of 9/11, thereby exponentially increasing the risk to not only MH370, but every other airline flight operated since September of 2008. And here's the names of those rat bastards. ALPA presidents first, then attorneys. Randy Babbitt, Dwayne Worth, John Prater, Lee Moak, now the attorneys, Susan Kalfas, James Johnson, Rob Plunkett, and Pete John Hoonan. And they might not like the public disclosure of their guilt. I don't give a rat's ass. David, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. So just to think on the lines of intimidation in Chicago, of the verminous people who now inhabit the White House. So you've got these parking attendants handing out fines and presumably trained and groomed by Serco to watch for any movements that might represent a decent individual coming through into the city municipal management or council. And of course, murders can be arranged. Now, just to put the clock back to Saul Alinsky, who is the mentor of Hillary Clinton, and he was, I think, dead before Barry started thinking about this kind of community organization. He said, you rub raw the sores of discontent, but he also became an expert in mob hits. And he noticed that the mob, the Chicago outfit, it had a very systematic approach to doing a hit. The hit team came from outside the community, and they did the hit in conjunction with local people who would point at the target to make sure that the right person got hit. That ensured there was no emotional connection between the hit man, hit team, or hit woman and the victim. And then the local team would be responsible for adjusting and manipulating the evidence and making sure that the justice system was suitably intimidated. And as I understand it, a lot of judges would show up as pallbearers. And of course, in order to coordinate everything, you need to have a meeting. I sometimes think of it as mustering. So the night before the hit, you'd stay in a hotel. And your staff in the hotel that would be responsible for the triage or the cleaning up or the placing of evidence would then meet with the guest who was flying in from somewhere else in the world or somewhere else in the country and go over the plans for the following day, where the local people would presumably have a pretty good indication of where the target would be at a particular time. That would be their job. And these would be the kind of people today that would be employed by Serco to collect parking fines. You know, they're out in the streets, they've got uniforms, they're watching, they can recognize whose car's parked where, maybe identify if the car's being parked underneath the hotel, get the room number. The hit might be done in the hotel or whatever. So the Obama clan in Chicago are raised in the techniques of contract killing perfected not just in Al Capone's time, but 100 years or more than 100 years before. So I see it's 12:42, Phil. What's your plan for the rest at the time?
I think we should call it quits because I got a pregnant goat, and I'm not being disrespectful to our listeners. I think this game's already over, and I'll tell you why it's over. Because, well, we, among others, have been publishing the truth in a way that they can't take it down. And there's several countries over in the region searching for what never was lost, and they're going to be highly miffed. And I'm pouring as much gasoline as I can on their miffliness. I think they have every right to be horribly miffed. If somebody held a gun to my head, and you know what, if it wasn't, wait a minute, I can unload it, can't I? Sometimes, David, you don't understand that a picture's worth 1,000 words. Now, I almost made a mistake. You know what the mistake was, Clyde?
Well, no, you took the magazine out at the right time.
Yes,
Still
but
got the chamber look.
okay, this guy's 84. What mistake did I just make? Because you're right, I made a mistake.
Not yet.
Well, not yet. If I were to point this at my head,
Yeah,
that would be a mistake, unless I do what?
you got to unload the chamber.
Let's find out. Let's put it on the camera. Let's find out
Unless the chamber wasn't loaded.
if it wasn't loaded.
That it was. Yeah.
That would have been a mistake. Now, and this is why people with handguns shouldn't move too fast unless somebody's attacking them. Now what I'm going to do before I do my little graphic is I'm going to lock this thing open just like Jack Mack taught me. Then I'm going to take a cautious look down the barrel from both ends. Very cautious. Oh, we're good to go now. If somebody were to put a gun to my head after he's unloaded it twice and said, "Who do you think did it and why?" I'd say Serco, aided by Alpha, aided by the senior executive service, aided by some entities in the global banking industry, aided by some family that might want that patent. I think they probably set up a bidding war between China and Malaysia to see who wants to buy their way out of a false flag hit, because it took off for Beijing where it could have hit a certain target that'll be in chapter 25, but it got turned around by the highest bidder. Serco doesn't care who wins or loses as long as everybody pays. They take it back towards the Petronas Tower, and then if you put a gun to my head, one false move and the dummy gets it. That would have been a false move to put the gun to my head. I forgot about the chamber round, but before it was too late, I remembered. Then some white hats from the United States of America, specifically AWACS Euclid 27. Anybody want to go see if, anybody want to Google Euclid 20, YUKLA 27, and see if there's ever been a Euclid 27 that has been used before. And meanwhile, I'll reload just in case somebody that wants to kiss my ass forgets to use mouthwash first. I hate halitosis on my derriere. So David, let's ask for the big red button, but you always want to have the last word. And just keep in mind, David, you can have the last word, but I'll have the first bullet. Over to you.
Okay, thanks, Phil. All right, I just want to read because this is a very important word, perhaps the most important word of the show today. Serco instructors are embedded with the BTF to train Navy officers in controlling and maneuvering ships in simulated warfighting environments. Scenarios are played out over two 17-week courses held annually. The instructors are also supported by Serco's operational support officer, who provides train the trainer and supplementation on other courses ranging from initial navigation to advanced navigation. So what I extrapolate from that is Serco agents are embedded in every significant chain of command, whether political or military or law enforcement, as observers in order to locate or spot high-value targets that might need to be taken out or intimidated. And those individuals are not responsible for the hit. They're doing the surveillance part. So if we get back through the food chain of the people who get paid to run surveillance, we get to the heart, the mens rea, and we arrive at the desk, the mutual desk. One side is one brother and the other side is the other. One brother is the grandson of Winston Churchill, who gave the go-ahead for the bombing of Nagasaki and Hiroshima. and that is Nicholas Soames. And the other brother, Rupert Soames, is the new CEO of Serco. So basically, it's between you and your sister, Phil, and the two Serco, the two Soames brothers. And I think I know who's going to win. Over and out.
Okay, I'm waiting for the push it, and until I do, I'll add one more to the list of many who are offered the chance to line up on Main Street in Plum City, hoping to get a chance to kiss my right cheek. Notice for the record, I didn't say kiss my ass. However,